There was news that came out just yesterday, right as we were going live on air, that Donald Trump just won a $24.5 million lawsuit against YouTube. Well, against their parent company of Alphabet, right? Because of the banning of him following J6. Did you guys see this?
No.
Okay.
I did.
So now let's like just take the numbers just to look at what it's done just this last year and a half. YouTube is paying him $24.5 million. Meta paid him $25 million. Twitter paid him $10 million. I didn't even know about that one. Did you guys know about that one?
No.
That one.
Twitter paid him $10 million. And the ABC defamation lawsuit over Stephanopoulos. So he donated $22 million of it to the Trust for the National Mall, which is the nonprofit that's supporting the construction of the new White House, the ballroom. Mm-hmm. Remember that literally the whole thing, the joke that was set up with Kimmel was the part where he was out there taking the questions, and they asked him, there was the helicopters, they were really loud, and they asked him how he was doing after Charlie Kirk, and he started talking about, I believe he was talking about the ballroom in that right there. So he won this lawsuit, and he donated most of it to the White House ballroom, which is, I'm assuming, the other $2.5 million, because $2.5 million was also paid out to others. I wonder what the lawyers' fees on that would be, or if that's in addition to all of this, because obviously the lawyers aren't working for free if YouTube would have to pay for the lawyers as well. But YouTube also had to pay $2.5 million to others, mainly the American Conservative Union and an author named Naomi Wolf. Are you familiar with her?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to? So she was a feminist author, and she was speaking out a lot about COVID policies.
Yes.
Okay. You'd heard about this?
Yes.
So she was apparently tied to the same lawsuit that Trump was in after being banned on Twitter in 2021. And I saw people posting about this topic, and they were asking, or they were saying, look, I'm not sick of winning yet. And I don't know how many other lawsuits he has in the pipeline right now, but do you think, I see people saying that this is actually these tech companies capitulating to his regime, and his lawyer even makes the point, he says, if he hadn't won the presidency in 2024, we would have been fighting these lawsuits for 1,000 years. Do you think that in any way takes away from the credibility of the claims? Like, because what they're saying is like they're just paying out because they don't want to be in a lawsuit with the president. They don't want him. What I'm saying the left is going to say is they're going to say, like, he's going to use the force of the government against us. We're just going to pay out these lawsuits now so we don't have to worry about him drawing ire against us.
Yeah, look, it's typical of companies to say it is better to pay some money in the short term than drag this out. When you throw in the fact that it's the president who has the bully pulpit and a billionaire who has sufficient funds to be able to compete with a company when it comes to dragging a lawsuit out, right? Like, 'cause usually if you're a small person or if you're just a single claimant or whatever going against the company, it benefits the company to drag it out and make it so that way it's not feasible for you to continue to pay your lawyers.
That's
right?
what it feels
That's what
like.
they want to do. But because it's Donald Trump, who is a billionaire, has sufficient funds to go to war with these companies, the calculation changes, and they say, do we want a long drawn out, litigation with the president of the United States who has no problem getting on the internet and just raking us over the coals? Whether it's true or not, there's going to be a slew of Americans that are going to just side with him because he's Donald Trump. And it's probably better to just pay the bill, pay whatever the settlement is. It's better to settle and get out of this lawsuit. Whether or not they would win isn't the point. They might win in the long run, but it's going to cost them a bunch of money to actually win, and then they have to deal with the negative press and deal with Donald Trump constantly berating and blah, blah, blah. So whether or not he would actually use the government is totally besides the point.
It seems like one of the most common tactics today in a society is like as litigious as ours is that these corporations, when they get sued, they just keep pushing the can down the road and hoping that you drown in lawyer fees and you can't do anything about it. And that's kind of the problem I have with all of this. So I saw other people asking about it. Like I saw Luke on X pointing out, he's like, well, look, a bunch of people who aren't the president, who don't have the size of the president's platform, were also banned off of these platforms and have not had that same type of recourse to do that. Look, we just saw that Google come out and basically say, whoops, sorry, the Biden administration told us to not to censor. They told us to censor these people, and we did. And then we saw the likes of Alex Jones and Nick Fuentes try to start new YouTube channels to have them immediately banned again. But what about the smaller creators who had their channels banned and this happened? I saw, was it Doug TeNapel talking about this as well, who's is Earthworm Jim, very famous creator, but not the size of a Donald Trump, and maybe doesn't have the money to take on the likes of Google. Right? Doesn't have the money to take on the likes of YouTube. And it kind of brings me back to what we always used to talk about. One of the things that I think shifted is when it came to the concept of cancel culture, it felt like when that discussion started, it started around the idea of ordinary, everyday people who would get in trouble for things they said online. Do you remember the story, the one I kept bringing up during the everything that came out about the Biden administration and YouTube was the guy who was cracking his knuckles and they thought he was making the okay hand sign, and then he lost his job because somebody reported him. But remember the story of like the girl who wanted to wear like a kimono to homecoming or to prom, and then everybody started like insulting
giving
her.
her shit because
she didn't have a she that's not cancel culture in the same way of like having a job, but everybody turned on her. Those are the people that I think of when I think of cancel culture. If you want to think of it in the terms of a business, I think of it as smaller YouTube creators who don't have the money to fight back against Google, and there is no recourse most of the time. You can file your appeal. It's not like you, unless you're of the size of a platform where you can actually go and like you have your own Google rep and you can talk to Google specifically with that person, you're just going to file your appeal, and there's every likelihood that nothing's going to happen, and they're not going to be able to do anything. You're not going to be able to do anything about it. Somebody mentioned the idea of possibly like a class action lawsuit. Would a bunch of creators be able to get together who had their channels banned and had no recourse back, be able to file some type of class action lawsuit against a company like Google? Who is now, does the Trump lawsuit set precedent? One of the things that it mentions in it is that when they settled this lawsuit, YouTube admitted no wrongdoing by paying this out. So there is no wrongdoing admitted by them, which I'm assuming again, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm assuming in legal terms means that there's no precedent set for them to say, well, it was wrong here, now it's also wrong when you did it to this person. It was also wrong when you did it to this person. Do you guys see any path forward for people to be able to do something like that, or is that just kind of wishful thinking given the size of Google?
I think it's probably just a wishful thinking given the size of Google. You know, Google is a monstrosity. Yeah.
It really is, and that's one of those companies that comes up. Look, with all the talk recently about affiliate, they were talking about breaking up affiliate networks like Nexstar and Sinclair, who are buying up these smaller channels. That was coming up because of the Jimmy Kimmel conversation. There's just as many conversations that go in around the idea of breaking up Google. And the idea that when you buy a phone these days, it's infinitely harder to de-Google your phone. Like, it's very hard to own any type of cellular device that isn't connected to Google in some way, shape, or form. So people have that discussion, but I would like to see this. I know it doesn't set precedent, but I would like to see some of these other smaller creators who made their own stuff and did really, really well for themselves, that weren't the president, that weren't Donald Trump, that didn't have his size or platform, who were doing nothing other than maybe asking questions about things in the news that they were telling you not to ask questions about. I want to see some of them be able to take Google on and be able to get something for it, because they took a lot of livelihoods away from people. I think the number that Doug TeNapel was saying that he was making per month on YouTube was, I saw it like 2 days ago on X, but I think he was saying like $700K or something a month. Wow. Or something like that when he got demonetized or banned or something like that.
So he was a victim of it.
It would have to be a class action.
It was some major number. Maybe I'm remembering that, but I think that's what he said.
Look, if you want to take on Google, especially if you want creators to take on Google, it would have to be a class action. You wouldn't be able to say, hey, this guy who made a lot of money, like even the top paid guys on YouTube, right? Like Tim wouldn't take on Google. He wouldn't want that smoke.
Yeah.
Like it would take like everybody that's a big creator. It would take Asmongold. It would take Tim. It would take people that aren't just in politics too. It would have to be
normie creators.
Yeah, it would have to be a huge amount of people, and it would have to be class action, and I just don't see it happening.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.